Yo, yo, yo! On today's show, we are joined by High Elf fanboy Simon of Hoeth as we tear the new book asunder. We look at themes for your new army and a display board to carry it on, all to make sure you get to show off your army with high elf esteem. And we look to crown another hobby hero, but it all depends if he can take his seat on the throne. Yo, yo, yo.
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heelanhammer episode 85, sponsored by Og Games. So, we're joined today by the man himself, Wayne Kemp.
Hello.
And returning, I know we said on the last show that he would be back for a show, I just wasn't sure it was going to be this soon, is Simon of Hoeth. Hi, Simon, how you doing?
Hello, very well, thank you.
Good, good. Well, you may realise that as we've got Simon on the show today, it's going to be a little bit High Elf-centric because we have had the release of the book this weekend. Well, I say this weekend as we're recording this, it's just the weekend just gone. We've already managed to I've had a game against him. Si's played a game himself, and Wayne, you've had a good look through the book as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Excellent. So this should be interesting. So there's not much news really to talk about today. So we're going to get straight into the topic. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody of our sponsors offer. So oddgames.co.uk for all your hobby needs. If you use the voucher May with no capitals, you spend £60 or more, you'll get an extra 5% off your purchases. So that's 20% off Games Workshop product. So pretty good if you want to be picking up these high elves and phoenixes and all the other stuff that is out and about at the moment. So let's get straight into it, boys. Okay, so the High Elf book. So Simon, I suppose we better start with you, really. You've had a chance to have a look at the book. I know we've got it next to us. What's your initial thoughts? I mean, this really isn't a book review as such, but people always ask us when these books come out, what do you think? What's good, what's not? And when they're looking for their shopping lists of the new book. So these are the kind of things I want to talk about today. So what have you found? How have you found the book overall?
So far, I quite like it.
You quite like it.
I quite like it. Okay, I've been fanboying it for a while. But it's clearly they've had a bit of a sort of focus on what they want the High Elves to be, and the biggest problem with the last book was the number of sort of viable choices. And I think what they've tried to do, while not necessarily making the army necessarily much stronger than it was, much more of it is viable than it was. And even just like the way they've done it, it seems like they're trying to make it more themed than it was.
Yes.
Can I just point out, before we get into it, right, because it's just caught my eye. If you've got the book and you flip to the bit where it's about phoenixes, right, and it's got the artwork for phoenixes, yeah, the actual artwork for the phoenixes it looks exactly like an eagle, a regular eagle, painted orange, yeah, and the ice one looks like a normal eagle painted purple and blue, right? So I think you're going to get loads of people buying the Lord of the Rings eagles and just painting them and just saying that is exactly what it looks like in the book, and the artwork, all the artwork looks nothing like the models that they've made for it. Just making a point, just saying.
Your hashtag just saying, are you?
Yeah, I see. It doesn't look particularly flamey.
If you saw that picture in black and white, you'd think it was riding an eagle, wouldn't you?
Maybe.
I'm now showing Dan the picture.
Yeah, funny enough, I was at Russville's weekend. We called it Russhammer 2 for anybody that had seen the hashtag on Twitter. And that was one of the things we all sat and looked at that particular picture and was talking about the Phoenix and bits and bobs as we'll come on to, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Okay, so yeah, moving back on, what did you think then about the fluff and the overall look of the book so far? Have you had a good read through it?
Yeah, I've had a good read through it. I think the way the book looks, and they've done with their history of the elves now, they've made it very clear that they record their history for each Phoenix King, and then they've written the history for each Phoenix King and all the major events that happen with that one. And overall, I mean, the backstory for the High Elves is fairly set in stone now. There's so many other books about it. But what they've tried to do for the fluff is they seem to have focused on what's changed recently. How are the elves coping with this sort of continuing idea that they are a dying race, and how their two monarchs are reacting to that. I think they've done it really well.
Two monarchs. Who's the two monarchs then?
So they've got the Ever Queen, and so she's the sort of representative of Aisha, their sort of mother god, and then they've got the Phoenix King from Assyrian, so the Lord of the Gods, and really they take responsibilities. Phoenix King tends to be the war leader, and the Everqueen is more the spiritual leader, but the line between those is becoming blurred, and they talk about how that may be how the world is sort of spiraling downwards, and that might be why that is.
Is that a little bit Lord of the Rings-ish? Don't they have that bit where it's like the elves are fading as a people, that kind of thing? No.
Yeah, it is a similar
Just saying.
thing as sort of
Yeah, no.
Twilight race.
I was just going
Wayne's
to ask,
looking at
why
me.
are they a dying race? Why is the whole, why do they consider themselves as a dying race when they're immortal?
Elves in Warhammer Fantasy are sort of pseudo immortal. They still die of old age.
I never knew that. That's a new one for me. I don't really know much about the higher fluff, to be honest. So
But the
Do you know about that?
I never
Sunderin
knew they
business?
died of high. I thought they were immortal.
Yeah. Oh, there you go then. They're obviously
They
not.
were. I'm sure they were in earlier editions. They were immortal. They were. They could only die under through violent means, or they couldn't die through. They didn't catch diseases or anything like that. So that's something they've changed. I'm sure someone will correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure that used to be immortal.
Yeah, they don't tend. Disease is very rare.
Yeah.
But they still die of old age. So if you read the Tyrion and Teclis books, they talk about how Tyrion with this sort of not Tyrion, Teclis with his enfeebled state, how that's judged and things. But it's really just sort of a extremely low birth rate. It takes them a very long time to mature. The way their society is so rigid with its tradition means that you don't just sort of procreate and have lots of kids all of a sudden. And tradition is everything to them.
Which is why the Dark Elves are flourishing, I suppose, because they got totally the opposite.
So yeah, well, tell us a little bit about this Sundering then, because I got quite a bit of stick from various parties about this Sundering. So I understand a little bit now. Wayne has filled me in. So is there any
Not
development?
physically.
Have they fleshed that out anymore? Is it roughly the same story as it always was?
The Sundering's exactly the same as it always was. They've fleshed it out a little bit with the Black Library books that came out, but it's still very much, there was an Arian's war with the demons. He dies. Council of the sort of princes, sort of similar to the elector counts electing the emperor, they decide which one of them should become the next Phoenix King. And they decide not to go for Malekith. They want to go for a sort of more peaceful king to help with the rebuilding, because they're worried about how he's been tainted by his father and the Sword of Cain. And, then he goes off and actually becomes a very great general and does lots of amazing things. He starts the friendship with the dwarves, explores most of what will become the Empire, Britonia, even the Chaos Wastes. But when he comes back, his mother, Morothai, has done all the Slanesh worshipping and really started the whole sort of Dark Elf thing. And he gets tied up in it, and eventually...
He arrests her, doesn't he?
Yeah, he arrests her and locks her in the tower, and sort of becomes this great warrior fighting against they call them the pleasure cults, but the Slanesh worshippers.
Yeah.
He's trying to get rid of them all. And eventually he accuses the Phoenix King himself of being one of these pleasure worshippers. And that's sort of the trigger point where it's gone too far, and all Morothai's plans sort of
She
unravel
kind of made it happen, and she's kind of been pulling strings in the background.
Yeah, you realise that he's been a pawn for a lot of it until eventually the game board is all laid out how she wanted it, and he starts the war. And it goes on. There's a very large war. Eventually, the High Elves.
So when he
prevail.
enters the flames, he really believes that he's going to become the Phoenix King.
Yes, and at the time, certainly he still believes, as far as I'm aware of the story, he still believes to this day that the god only rejected him because of some kind of trickery by the people at the Shrine of Osirian, so by the Phoenix Guard or by the priests of Osirian. Someone
So that
did some
explains
magic.
the bitterness behind it all.
And so he's not just been rejected by the elves as a king, he's been sort of almost rejected by the god as well.
Yeah.
But not unfairly, he feels.
Is that why he kind of gives himself to Cain then afterwards?
Yeah, partly. But even then, he still sort of has this, he rages against the gods. Malekith doesn't become a Slanesh worshipper.
Right.
So he still leads the Dark Elves, and he still thinks that he should be the rightful king, and everything will be better because of that.
Yeah.
Rather than him being really involved with the pleasure cults and all that. That's still what his mother does.
So is he, I know it sounds like an obvious question, but because you've read the books and stuff, is he like, you always get the impression that he's really cruel and twisted, but obviously from what you're saying about the books, it just sounds like he's very bitter, that he's been he feels like he's been tricked and deceived by what's going on. Is he bitter and twisted? Or?
He becomes bitter and twisted, and
Yeah.
really that sort of trigger point where it pushes him over the edge is that when he is burnt
Yeah.
Because in that magical fire, it's mental as well as physical, the burning. So he becomes bitter and twisted, but for a long time he is as much a beacon of the High Elf race as Tyrion is now in the books.
Right.
Can I ask you a really important question on this though? Does the flame when he walks in, does it have the flame and attack special rule?
No, it's magical flames. They
Is
don't
it
have
warp
that.
flame?
Yeah, exactly. It's a warp flame, actually. Apologies. So it always makes when you hear like somebody who actually knows what they're talking about with the fluff, and you hear it read better, like related back to you. It does sound like an awesome story, doesn't it? So
it does. Yeah. We were
I should really read some at some point.
We were talking at was it a club? Wasn't it? It was after the club one. Was it one? No, it was at my house.
I think so.
Yeah, we were talking. Well, we were talking about it at some point,
Mm.
and then because Simon's read the books and about the Sunder and that, and he was really going into it. And I knew the Sunderland story, but he'd gone into it in real depth, and then told me the other side of where they've really kind of sort of fleshed out Malkith about his whole role with the High Elves and how really kind of he actually believes he's doing good right till now. But obviously, he's been, the flames. Obviously, when it goes into the flames, he should have never been there.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, that spirals out of control afterwards. But you get a real, I want to read the books now. I'm going to get them and read them because it sounds a brilliant story.
Good. No, I mean there is so many of them out there now. I think they're apparently from what I hear from other podcasts and reviews I've read on blogs and things. They do seem to go up and down in terms of quality. I don't know if you found that. Did you? Si, were they all a good read?
Yeah, they do go up and down a little bit, but I think it's one of those things. If you love that particular race, it almost doesn't matter how badly written it is. You get really involved in the story. But certainly, overall, the Time of Legends books have been probably some of the better things from the Black Library for me, at least. Excellent.
And have they advanced any of the fluff? So you've got the Sundered's obviously kind of a historic moment. Is there anything added new in the current fluff that's advanced the story of the race?
Not really. It has just been that sort of how they're adapting to this. Oh, we are going to all die out, but we're going to go out in a blaze of glory kind of thing. So the Ever Queen has become more warlike, and that's actually why she's included in the book.
Yes,
you can now field her as a character. Whereas oddly, the Phoenix King, who's supposed to be their war leader, doesn't appear in the book. And they talk about how he's sort of locking himself away and sort of trying to work on a plan. And he's much more forward thinking than the rest of the elves. The High Elves are very traditional, but Finnabar is trying to think about the humans and the other races and how if there is a way that they can prevail in the end. And he seems to sort of isolate himself from some of the petty politics that goes on.
Excellent. And that's quite good then, I suppose, in a way that at least they've explained why they haven't, in a way, why that Phoenix King isn't in there and why the other queen is. So
yeah, and it's quite nice. And it's nice to be able to use her. And, we got the new Handmaid and the Sisters of Avalon, so you can have an Avalon army. There's specific Avalon units, which hasn't been the case for a long time.
No. Okay, so let's have a look there. So we talked a little bit about the fluff. Is there anything else, Si, you wanted to pick up on the fluff that you particularly found interesting or was a shock or anything like that?
No, it was sort of the same story. High Elves have been around for so long that I don't think there was much chance of a sort of seismic change. The only thing that might have happened in some of the library books, they've talked about the awakening of the dragons and this sort of resurgence, at least part of the elf race, but that hasn't been done.
No. Okay, good. Have you got a question, Wayne? You're looking like you might have.
No, I'm just interested. It's just, it's always nice to hear someone that's like really into when a book comes out and they're into every aspect of it, apart from like the last 10 pages.
What are you saying?
To hear the whole story. It's a great book though. The artwork's lovely in it. It's really nicely laid out. It's great.
No,
but then all the new books are. I don't think there's been a tough one yet, to be honest.
No, it's come to be a standard that we expect now, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's great. I mean, if you flick back, I was pointing at the 5th edition High Elf book that I've got here, and that was quite a nice book. But if you compare the two, they're really nice quality. Now, the other thing as well is if you look at the back page of the book. What I find odd as well, we were chatting some about this at the weekend, is that there's a blue page at the back. It's printed on, and it just shows that's not to print that back of that blue page. That's probably quite a lot of money in terms of printing. If you've ever been involved with cost per page and all the rest of it, a full colour sheet like that is probably a reasonable amount of cash. It's kind of not no expense spared, but they haven't mucked around with cheap quality books, and I think that's something that
this seems to be the quality of we talked about the the Warrior book was slightly different. There was something about it that felt slightly different. The paper and everything seems to have gone back. It's not the same as the Warrior book. Because there was just some slight difference in the Warrior book. I don't know what it was, but there was something different in the paper. But it seems to have gone back to what the same kind of paper it was before.
Good. Well, I suppose we better move on from the quality of the paper. But yeah, overall, we like the book, didn't we? We like the book.
Well, it's all important.
Yeah, it is all important. It is. So let's talk briefly then. So let's get on to the nitty gritty of the rules and how it performs on the tabletop. I mean, what's been your highlights reading through the rules for the first time when you looked at it and you started thinking about writing lists? What was your highlights? What do you think? I want to use one of these.
Cavalry for core.
Oh, yep, great.
Just livening up that it's been so boring with here's my 600 points of archers or my unit of spearmen and some archers. That's livening it up. Obviously, there's the Phoenixes and the Lawmaster. I think the Lawmaster has a lot of potential. Trying to fit him in, I found difficult, but I think he adds a lot of flexibility.
So for those of you that haven't read what the Lawmaster is, do you want to explain briefly what he does?
So imagine sort of a noble with an extra wound. And a great weapon. So he is a sword master. He has their parry rule, etc. But he has every signature spell from the 8 laws of magic and is a level 2 wizard. So he adds all that utility and a little bit of combat stuff. And I think he's something like 230 points, which works out quite reasonable, really, for the amount of flexibility that he adds.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute when we talk about our game experience. But I've played against 2 of these in the same army, and they are really, really quite good, I think, for the points. But not only, I think they're great from a fluff perspective if you want to have a fluff game, but they also might have a competitive element in them as well. So I've seen quite a few lists kicking around Twitter and places that include them. I haven't seen many with 2, but I've seen quite a few of them with 1 and maybe a level 4. As you say, that's a fairly expensive choice, but then no more expensive, I suppose, than other armies that field double level 4s or double lords. So in a high elf army, I know in the past it's been very hard work if you've filled anything more than about 3 characters to get any troops in. But have you found that in the current book or not?
Yeah, it is the same. I mean, we're helped. There's overall the army is slightly cheaper, and you've got all these cool new characters. You've got the Sea Helm, you've got the Maiden Guard, but if you do load up on them, you realise you've got nothing, and it's still toughness 3 with a 5-up save and dies to a breeze.
That's true. What about, so let's move through then. I mean, the core, let's pick up on your point there. I've been impressed with the makeup of the list now. I think I can see Elarian. How do you pronounce it? Is it Elarian? Elarian?
I've always said Elrian.
Yeah, Elrian. Well, whatever they are, the Reavers, I can see them mass comeback. If people have got them, they're probably going to be sort of picking up a price, maybe on eBay. I can see them being useful core, where before everyone used to just spam archers and a spear bunker or equivalent. It does appear like you've got a bit more choice now with those.
Yeah, and they add that sort of movement element, and they help pick up some of the roles that eagles and characters on eagles and things like that would have done. But also the silver helms, I think there's a lot of potential now where you've got to take these core points and actually sort of a bus of silver helms with either a prince or some nobles in adds quite a lot of strength now and a lot of armor saves and wounds for not that many points, while still filling out the core that otherwise you'd have had spent on archers previously.
Can you take magic banners on the I forgot to look. Can you take magic banners on the silver helms?
No, I don't think so. I think they've actually removed the sort of first among equals rule, which used to be the magic banner on one of your core units.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So the one thing I did, Wayne shaking his head.
Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah. I'm just looking. You can't take magic banners on them.
No, that was only shame because I think the mandatory +1 leadership banner could find its way there.
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking about. But so when I played against them in a game, with sort of I'll keep mentioning as we're talking, I'm sure, and I remember killing my first unit, and I thought, brilliant, that's got to be 100 odd points, 85 points or something for 5, because it goes up sort of incrementally, doesn't it? Something like X amount of points for X extra if you swap your spear for a bow, and then it's a couple more, isn't it, if you want the beer and the bow.
And the bow,
yeah. But they're still quite cheap, I thought, for what they do. Elves on horses.
Yeah, and actually in my game, I had a little unit of 5, and they charged the side of a Engine of the Gods, and actually managed to break it and run it down because it fell out the bubble. But they do lots of little jobs. They help clear chaff, and just all the general stuff that fast cavalry do with an elven stat line. Previously, I think a lot of high elf players have been jealous of dark elf dark riders, and suddenly we got these, and it does balance it up a bit.
I'll tell you something I forgot about was the utility of being able to flee a charge and then rally and then go back straight in front of the unit, move again after fleeing, because you don't see that many fast cavalry units in the game anymore. Empire players, I can't remember seeing a Pistolier unit on the board. And as you say, Ellerin Reavers, the odd person took them who was running a slightly different list, but generally didn't see them. So it's really only, you don't see too many Glade Riders, although I think they're a good unit. And Dark Riders you saw on and off depending on the list, but it wasn't like it used to be in 7th where you saw a lot of fast cav. So I think you forget that utility that they have when they flee, rally, come back, do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be in the right position to not get caught these days, but it's still quite useful if you can flee through your own troops or through enemy units or something.
And they're so mobile. I mean, you got the 12-inch Vanguard at the start, then an 18-inch March move, so you can get them where you want, and importantly, where your opponent didn't think they could get maybe in the first place.
I agree.
And lovely models to paint.
Yeah, well, the ones from the Island of Blood are particularly nice, aren't they?
Yeah.
And apparently they're still going, I don't know how long they're going to stay this cheap on eBay, but someone was telling me you can get like 1 billion of them for about 30 quid or something on eBay. People, because before they had no value, did they? No one wanted them. So I don't know how much they are.
I think I picked up my 5 for £5 earlier, and it was just, because everyone keeps buying the Island of Blood, break it up, and I don't think they'll necessarily stay that cheap.
No. So I'll be getting them quickly if you're interested in them, because I'm sure there's someone sitting on a mountain of them somewhere that because no one wanted them. But yeah, so they were good. What else? So what else popped out in your head when you were looking at lists?
I've been looking at the Sea Guard because thinking, well, if they fire in 3 ranks now due to the way martial prowess has changed, maybe they can do a bit more, and they got a point cheaper. In reality, so far they haven't necessarily delivered. And I still think the core infantry element is going to be difficult. It's a shame Spearmen didn't go down a point, since Archers and Sea Guard did. You kind of think, well, now it's even less points than it was previously to get a guy with a bow who's doing something 6 turns rather than a guy who's doing something for 3-4 turns.
Yeah. Well, I played in the game I played against Brian, Brian the Hobby Killer. He had a unit of 30 Sea Guard, I think it was, which is mainly part of his core. And we were talking about the merits of whether you actually need Sea Guard or you could just have Archers. But I was really surprised at what 30 shots in one place does, because I think the problem with 8th edition, I started to use ballistic skill shooting in my Empire list. And the problem with it is, a lot of the time, because combat happens so quickly these days, you end up shooting on massive minuses through units. It's very hard to concentrate, say, 30 shots into one place. But if you've got just one unit of 30 that now you can deploy in a horde and all 30 can shoot because of the rules, I thought it was quite effective, actually. It surprised me. I'm always slightly surprised how much Elven shooting does with the ballistic skill 4, but seeing it in a horde of 30 shooting in one place at one target, it seems to do quite a lot. So I was quite impressed by that. But so you, how did your ones? You played a game, didn't you? Did you use the Sea Guard in that list?
Yeah, I had 2. I'd just been using the sort of list I'd been using previously. So I had 2 smaller units, 2 units of 21. I've now changed that to a unit of 35 for the next game. But yeah, and they did do what they'd done previously, slightly better, but significantly for less points, which means you can then get in the Elrin Reavers and still be, only just over that 600 point unit limit. And, they was against Lizardmen, so they were just pewing off skinks and things.
Yeah, probably quite effective at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd imagine 30 to 35 of them shooting into a 10-man skirmishing unit is pretty good. So
I suppose the biggest obvious difference as well is with the Archers, they get hit and then you're taking them off because they just die. But at least you've got a chance of standing around a bit longer with the Spearmen, especially if you've got like the Lawmaster of Hoth, and he's got the signature spell like the Beast signature spell, so he gives him +1 toughness. You know what I mean?
Don't get me started on that. In my game, that cost me the game. A double wild form, yeah.
So if you get wild form off, and suddenly, that Archer block, which is, suddenly a good, is an effective combat block. So I think the sort of dual role units, I think, are very, very good.
Whereas like the old, when I was running the Hoeth Mindrazor type build, Spearmen were amazing for that. And, they're still just as good. And you've got the ability to guarantee Wizards and still have other things, not just have Wizards.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think that's if I was going to play High Elves, I think that I'd go to Sea Guard definitely for the core, because I like the fact that they do 2 things, which means obviously in tournament play as well, because you never know who you're going to play. If you've you've got a unit that fulfills 2 roles, that's a positive in tournament play as well.
What I quite like about it is that there is actually a choice now, whereas before I felt really Archers or Spearmen was was a choice, but you tended to build, depending on your magic, depended where you went. So if you wanted more bodies, a lot of people tended to chunk up the spearmen, so you sought them. If you wanted lots of units, you tended to see archers. But now it seems much more a choice because of the martial prowess where you can shoot in this extra rank. I think it does make an interesting choice, and also the Lawmaster changes things quite a lot because you'd never take a beast wizard just for fun, would you? In a high elf army, I don't think. Oh, sorry, anything other than for fun. I think in a high elf army. Well, I did see it a couple of times. People running beasts for fun with different nobles and things, but generally you wouldn't go out your way and spend 100 odd points on a guy with beasts. Whereas with a Lawmaster, it's a toolbox, isn't it? You've got, if you think about the signature spell, so you've got Spirit Leech for character sniping. He's leadership 9, isn't he? Because he's a lord. Yeah. You've got Wild Form to buff the units. There's a weakness on them. You've got Ice Shard Blizzard, which is -1 to hit, -1 leadership's good. What else you got? Searing Doom for the Knights, Fireball, which is a brilliant spell. And, other spells. The one that was interesting was the life one, where you get regen for your unit. Normally not that useful. Again, you wouldn't really buy a low point wizard just to have the ability to regen your unit. But it's just another thing in his toolbox. He's already got it.
230 points, wherever he is, and suddenly you've got all those spells.
Yeah.
That's
and not
a
only
really
that,
flexible wizard.
It's the lore attribute as well, because this caught me out, and we'll talk about phoenixes in a minute. But in our game, the phoenix getting healed by the life bloom from the... you go, okay, I'll regen my unit, and your opponent thinks, well, all right, whatever. Oh yeah, cool. I'll put a wound on a model within 12 then, so that Phoenix can have his wound back. It's really
good point.
There's a few things like that until you see it on the table, you don't quite get the synergy of it. But I was
another
really
good thing about the Lawmaster, we're having all those signature spells are all low casting.
Amazing.
That's the big deal as well, I think.
Unbelievable. I played Brian, and he had. I'm not going to go through his whole list because I don't know if he wants me to talk about it or not. But I'm going to talk about the bits that I liked. And he had double Lawmaster. I'm not sure how many people take this, but anyone who knows how Brian writes lists looks what he thinks are the best things in the book and has 2 or 3 of them. It depends how many he could fit in. So he had double Lawmaster and the Book of Hoeth, the new one, and that is awesome. I don't know if you've seen it, Wayne, but
not yet. No,
it allows you to re-roll a dice, doesn't it, until you fail? Is that right?
It's every casting or every dispel attempt, you get to re-roll 1 dice from that, and you can't re-roll 6s, so you can't use it to stop yourself blowing up. But if you want to spam spells, I mean, to be honest, I think the Book of Hearth is a 1+ item. I don't think you'll see many high elf lists without it.
No. So you mentioned the 2 Lawmasters. So Brian would have like an 8 dice phase. And because you've got that, you'd always do it with a book guy first. You'd throw, say, 2 dice at a signature spell. And he's only level 2, so sometimes you're not sure. And if you roll low, you can always re-roll one of them. And you carry on. Or if you really want to get it off and you roll big dice, you don't quite, or you go for like a boosted version or something and don't quite get it, you've got the option to re-roll. It's amazing. And he did it. An 8 dice magic phase with 2 dice, 2 dice, 2 dice, 2 dice, with this dice being re-rolled is really, really hard. I mean, he had like, I saw a steam tank, and he was like, right, you could go Spirit Leech, Searing Doom, Searing Doom, and that's like 8 dice. I know 8 dice isn't that hard to get, is it, in a magic phase when it comes?
No, not at all.
And if he was really being cheeky on some of them, you think like Ice Shard Blizzard can be cast on a 5 on those guys. So if you're doing it at the end, you got 1 dice left. You could just 1 dice. I'll have a reroll on that dice, or whatever. It's really, really good. So I was impressed by that. I thought you could do loads of stuff, and ultimately that's what won him the game. Was that he went in and he managed to get Wild Form off on a unit of Sea Guard that went in the flank of a big combat. And Wild Form off on the White Lions that I was fighting, and the +1 toughness, and some bad rolls from me, but it was only because I wasn't wounded on 2s that I even got in this situation. Won in the combat. So really, I was really impressed by them. I thought they were very, very, very good utility troops, and I think in a list like High Elves, utility is key. So impressed by that. So Si, tell me about some other choices. I mean, let's talk about the Phoenixes, because everyone wants to know about the Phoenixes. Did you play with any of these? Like them, not like them?
I haven't played with any of them yet. I like the idea of them, but I find it difficult to include them, because I find you're looking for stuff that breaks armor down. And while the Phoenixes do have a decent strength, they don't necessarily do that reliably. They're going to die against a lot of monstrous cavern things. But they do have potential, but I'm worried that they only have the potential at killing things that high elves can already kill, whereas things like bolt throwers deal with things that you don't want to deal with otherwise, and they're now cheaper, so I quite like loading up on them instead at the moment.
Yeah, I played against 4 of those bad boys in the game I played, and they were pretty good for repeat bolt throwers at 70 points apiece. It's not that much of an investment. Did you use the Phoenix in your practice game, any of them?
No, I haven't had the chance yet. I will give it a go. I want to give it a go with every unit, but the Phoenixes haven't had a chance yet.
So I've changed my mind in the space of a few days on this. I looked at the book, thought that flaming one looks quite cool. You know, he gets back up and he does this and he flies over units and burns them, and this is going to be really nasty. And then I played against the frost one. Oh my god, how good is that thing? It's really, really good. What I didn't really appreciate is that it's toughness 6, but with anyone in base is -1 strength. So even things like demigryphs that go through the majority of things in the game, strength, I charged straight in, didn't really think about it. Strength 5, of course, goes to strength 4. You wounded on 6s. So this Phoenix, so it's attuned to magic. So your highest dice. So 1 round it would have an extra attack. 1 round it would have an extra ward save. 1 round it would have extra strength. And it just, I couldn't kill it. And then with that life bloom from the Lawmaster, you had to shut down that regen spell if you didn't want to get a wound back. Eventually, I got it with a cannonball when it eventually came out of combat. But yeah, really impressed. I mean, the High Elves aren't known for that kind of real unit, aren't they? It's normally sort of elven things, the whole bait, flee, redirect with eagles. But this thing went straight out, 12 inches in front of the where Brian's battle standard and Lawmasters were standing, 9 rerollable test, and just sat there for ages. Eventually failed a 9 rerollable, which is how it got out of combat. But otherwise it would have been there to the end of the game and probably killed off the demigryphs. But it was a really good blocker. I was surprised at what it did. It also had the ability to sort of fly over and tag on the end of a combat and change the combat as well. So I was quite impressed with that. It seemed like a good model. From first reading, I thought the fire one would be better, but the frost one looks really good. So I think 2 of those could be seriously annoying when you're playing against double monstrous cav, because you think monstrous cav should kill it, but there's not many. Well, there's hardly any strength 6 monstrous cav except for the blood crushers on the charge, aren't they? I think they're 6, but pretty much everything else is 5. So even they're going to be wounded on 6s. So it doesn't do a lot of damage. It's only got 4 attacks, or 5 if you've got if you get that attuned to magic result that gives you the extra attack. But it's a fact it just grinds out and gives you the option to pin something. So
yeah, I suppose that's something I hadn't really considered before. You know, just using it as a roadblock, and I suppose you've got the hittiness from elsewhere. And you can use them to support the dragon, since now you can't really spam eagle characters in the same way because of the restrictions on magic items. We've got to use the same as everyone else. So I think that might be a way of using it, at least at the start.
Yeah, I was seriously impressed by that, because Brian kept it sort of behind a hill because we were playing standard line of sight for ETC, so I couldn't shoot it. Although we were proxying anyways, it was just a base, but that's not the point. And so I wouldn't be able to see it anyway on the true line of sight as invisible. And it just flew out in front of me, and I was like, yeah, whatever, charge. Not really thinking it through. And then I was like, actually, I'm on 6s to wound it, and you're like strength 6 or strength 7 if it depended on the winds of magic roll. But yeah, really cool. I like the way it changed with the magic as well. It felt really elfy, and the synergies with the magic with the Lawmasters. You know, Ice Shard Blizzard, for example, doing that twice on it doesn't only one of those goes off, and suddenly the unit that's fighting it's at -1 leadership and -1 to hit it. So suddenly most things are, because it's weapon skill 6, most things are at least 5 to hit it, and then it does a couple of wounds to you. You're on a break test and your leadership's -1. So yeah, really, really impressed with that model actually. Again, just as a synergy. So that was a pretty good highlight. What about the bow chariot then? While we're talking about the new bits, did you ever have a play with that one?
No, I read. I said in the last show, unless it has a lot of special rules, I don't see myself using it, and it doesn't.
No,
we were talking about this at the club, weren't we? This is one thing we were talking about at the club last week, and you were saying that they're just, for what they do, the points and everything, and obviously not being able to march, and because they're a chariot and things like that. They're just, I don't think they're worth the points really.
No, we had a few games with the High Elves this Heelanhammer weekend, and one of the first lists that was put on the table had 3 of them in. And we thought, maybe you could do something with avoidance shooting, but they just don't do enough, or they didn't do enough in the game.
Yeah,
they're quite useful if you have them on the flanks and you sort of angle at things as they advance. But again, the bolt thrower is only strength 5. They're still a bit flimsy and they just die. But I think you still see them. I don't think they're like a really, really bad choice. I'm just not sure they're not like something like a Demigryph or a Mournfang that you're going to see in every list, I don't think. But
I really like the Tyrannok chariots now, 70 points each, and you can field them in units. I think there's some legs in that.
I think there is. I don't think it will be as optimum as taking the sort of the Dragon Princes and things like that, just because of their armor save.
Yeah.
But I do think, Tyrannok chariots, now that they're a bit cheaper, you can take them a bit more as support. Whether I take big units.
That was
took-
interesting that you could take units for a start. I mean, that was I only noticed that when someone said at the weekend, can you take them in units? And I was like, yeah, you can. Unit size 1 to 3. It seems quite cool. But
I like the fact that if you take 3 of them against certain armies like Skaven, because elves always struggle with the whole horde army. Being able to kill a lot of models in one go, like a slave block, and go in there and do 3 lots of impact hits, and then obviously all the guys, that always strikes first and everything like that. They could kill a substantial amount of models in one turn, can't they? Against poor troops.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's their role. I wouldn't say like have loads of units of them, but maybe like 1 unit of 3 or 4. I think would
again with magic
be good.
I think with 8th, you've always got to look at how what do they do with magic buffs, because there's a potential that you're going to get magic buffs off on them. So with that, they'd be quite useful.
But that's the thing with the Lawmaster, isn't it? Every time you look at something and you think with their weaknesses, and then you go back to the Lawmaster.
Wild Form Chariots, yeah,
and it's just all the selection of spells they got, and you just think, well, they're great. Yeah, they're just really, really good.
The only thing is, it's quite funny because we're talking about all the chariots, and this shows you how good, how it appears, at least on the initial balance, that the book is. I instantly did the opposite. I looked at the White Lion chariot and thought 120 points stubborn, kicks out a lot of strength 5. It could be quite useful again as a sort of a pseudo blocker. You charge it into something. Anything obviously that's really hard is going to kill it, but anything sort of average is going to have a hard time killing it. You're going to do quite a bit of damage, and it's stubborn, so there's a good chance it will just hang around and give you the opportunity to set up a counter charge somewhere. So I think there's a potential to really annoy people with that. So that was good. You mentioned Dragon Princes, Si. They seem expensive, don't they? 29 points.
Which means they're a point cheaper than they were.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I just looked at 29 points. I think it's because everything else effectively sort of went down, and you look at 70-point chariots and 70-point bolt throwers. You got to take points from bolt throwers to put into the shooting player in me thinks that, I'd want to be sitting on 4 of those, but I don't know whether composition systems and people will let me. I don't know, but
it is a proper shake-up in the book, isn't it? Because you think where certain things have changed points. With bolt throwers and the chariots and stuff like that, and obviously the new models that they've put in the units and such, and the way the characters have changed now with Lawmaster, it really is. The army that most people were running is going to have a real shake up. To
definitely
of a competitive level. Obviously, your hobby gamers are going to run whatever they run anyway, and just add the new models because obviously that they're going to collect everything anyway. But your tournament gamers, I think it's a real. From Workshop's point of view, it's kind of like they're going to think, well, yeah, that was a great build, but you're going to have to buy a whole lot of new models now.
Well, you do look through it, and okay, we just said we're not necessarily super keen on the Skycutter chariot, but there's no sort of slaughter brute. There's nothing that you think that's so bad that I'm not going to be taking that.
That's true. Actually, I hadn't considered that. Yeah.
The Dragon Princes, yes, at 29 points for 1 wound cavalry at toughness 3 is still a lot, but they've still got their ward save against flaming attacks, so they're still immune to metal magic. They've still got their 2-up saves, still 2 attacks at weapons skill 5 with rerolls. Now that Swordmasters and White Lions don't have the rerolls, I think that gives them a slight niche in terms of reliable shock troop, at least on that first turn, and they gained a 6-up ward save.
How many points is the World Dragon Banner?
Oh, I suppose let's mention this then. So, Simon, would you like to explain what the World Dragon Banner does for those who haven't been on the internet, seen the rage of 23 pages on the Warhammer forum?
Be easier to say what it doesn't do.
Yeah, probably, but no, go for it.
So, it is a 50-point banner, so you can take it on all the elite units. And it gives you a 2-up ward against spells, which is similar to the old Lawmaster's Cloak. But then this is the bit the internet raging about. You get a 2-up ward versus magical weapons and magical attacks. So you basically have a 2-up ward on one of your elite units against demons and the whole demon army. And then on top of that, it's got if any dragon, friend or foe within 12 inches is also stubborn.
Now all Skaven weapons, Hex Wraiths, fear, it's a lot of stuff.
What we found in the small bit of playtest we did at the weekend with it was the fact that the miscast templates didn't blow it up because they've been FAQ'd as being magical. If you were chucking dice at things, or you were unlucky and you were using Lawmasters, lots of small dice, or whatever, and you miscast, you didn't blow half your elite unit up or half your bunker up because of the save. So there was a game played though that had these that had that unit against a demon player. And the demon player didn't find it that much of an issue. But then again, with the list setup being different, it could have been a problem, I think. But I think what's the maximum you can do? Say a 600. You look in most tournaments, you're going to be 400, 450, 500 points, say 500 point unit of White Lions or whatever you're going to use. Say you put 600 points of characters in there. You mean you could have a lot. I mean, you could potentially have 1,600 points in there, which would be a bit of a shame for the demon player. But I mean, I suppose like anything, you could still get a result out of it. I think it's just a bit of a shame that ended up in the book and is 50 points because it's fine against most things. I don't think that's actually that broken against most things, but that one match it plays demons, it's got to be so frustrating for the demon player to know that, oh, look, all his wizards have got in that unit, got no hope or very little hope of doing it. So
yeah, I think if it was of a points value so that you had to put it on a BSB who then can't take any other magic items, so at best he's got a 2-up save toughness 3, I think no one would be raging about it. You just go in and kill him. But now, where you've got to grind through the entire unit to get rid of it, it is very good.
Especially on a stubborn unit,
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, I mean, in the test game, both players thought it was just okay, but I think it's just one of those aggravating ones you don't really want it, because I talked about it afterwards and I said, yeah, but what happened if you'd put it? Because I think in that game they were using it on a battle standard so it could move between units, and it wasn't on a White Lion unit. I was thinking, well, what if it was on 30 White Lions? If it was me, I'd be putting that 30 wide in a line and running it forward and seeing how that worked. But that is a bit of a shame. So I'll be interested to see how that comes out. And
40 of the Sea Guard with Wild Form on from the Lawmaster and that banner, and BSB with that banner unit. That's and
both Lawmasters fighting with the 6 strength 6 between them or whatever they've got. It's
that's a big problem.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a shame, I think. But other than that, I haven't seen anything massively broken in the book that I thought, oh my god, we must comp this. I thought it looked quite good, actually, a little bit like the Demon book. The Demon book looks really quite well balanced. So yeah, I'm looking at that. So tell me briefly then, Si, what did you have in your list for your practice game?
So in my practice game, I had the Archmage on Death with the Book of Hearth, because why wouldn't you take that item? And then I had a character riding around on an eagle still. I had one of the handmaidens, and I had a noble with a level 2 who was rocking the high magic just so that I could try it out. 2 units of 21 Sea Guard, 5 Elrian Reavers, 21 Phoenix Guard, 2 Bolt Throwers, a Great Eagle, 15 Sisters of Avalon, because I wanted to try those out, and that's why I had the Handmaiden in there with the Reaver Bow as well. And that was it, I think.
Good. And how did you find out with the handmaidens then? Good, bad, ugly?
They were okay. I mean, they were playing against lizardmen, so whatever they shot died, and it died very quickly. Whether you're going to take them over bolt throwers, I don't know. I was hoping, you think, it's a bit more maneuverable. It's got a lot of wounds, so it's still something to deal with. But one of the problems is they can't take a musician. So they're not quite as mobile as you'd like them to be with them still shooting.
But you've got a theory on that, haven't you?
Yeah, well, they're made out of the Shadow Warrior box, and Avalon is supposed to be there sort of roaming around, fighting any beasts that get in there. Were they skirmishers originally? Is it literally they made a champion model, later decided that they were going to be a ranked up unit, and so there was no musician model, and they just said release it as it is?
Oh, right. Well, yeah, maybe.
There's no standard as well.
No standard, and it's a rare infantry unit without a musician or a standard option. And you can put the handmaiden in, which gives them quick to fire, and you think, that makes them nice and even better when they're mobile. And yet with no musician, it limits that to sort of almost a line archer unit still. So
there is actually no musician option in the book.
No,
see, I hadn't noticed that. So, but yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? It's just bizarre considering nearly every unit you get these days, other than skirmishers, has a command option.
Musician.
So, it does sound that way, doesn't it? That the models were made for a skirmish unit, and they've changed their idea on the ruling, but obviously they haven't changed the models.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool.
That theory does make sense, doesn't it? Well, it seems to be the one that does make the most sense, because you always get a command option, and it's a selling point as well, isn't it? When you see the models painted and they've got their own banner and everything, especially by the high, the high ups are done with the whole embossed banners and everything, the new stuff that you see. Why wouldn't they have a command?
No, it does sound.
I mean, is there anything in the sort of in the fluff in the background of them?
No, there's nothing, and that's why I think they are just talked about as these sort of rangers. They're on their way to becoming handmaidens, and they just go around with their magical flaming bows.
shooting up stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do think they might have been skirmishers originally. No, I think they've got a place in the army still. They did work quite well.
Maybe they're just modest and they don't like to play their own trumpet.
Whoa! I'm impressed with that. That's quite good. Yeah, I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I might have to make it into a pun at some point. Maybe I'll just edit you out and put me in.
All right,
like it's me. I did it. Yeah. And that was good. So yeah, okay, excellent. And how did you find the high magic? You mentioned you were giving it a test.
Yeah, I quite liked it. I think it's one of those laws that helps high elves against some of the matchups that previously could be very difficult. I think it helps a fair amount with a Skaven. I think it helps a fair amount with lizard men. So yeah, there's a lot of potential in high magic. What I found is, though, when you write the list, if you take it on a level 4, you start to write, well, how am I going to kill that armor? How am I going to deal with that? And I think that might be where the Law Master comes in with his signature spells of Spirit Leech and Searing Doom. I do think it's a good law. I find it interesting that only the law attribute is high elf named. So I think Lizardmen players should have a very good look at it, because I think that's probably what you've got.
Yeah.
It's good. It's nice and varied. It's got a bit of everything, just like high magic used to. It's still got the equivalent of All's Unmaking. It's still got a big Flames of the Phoenix spell. The ability, a spell that heals wounds, very good if you are running the Phoenixes or the Star Dragon. So I think it's a good level 2 lore, not necessarily sold on it just yet as a level 4 lore.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's tons of options. I think from a competitive point of view, if I was doing a shopping list right now, I'd probably be buying Bolt Throwers, a Phoenix, the Frost one to start with, White Lions, don't know, Ella and Reavers. I don't know. I'd buy loads of stuff. I think because you've got. I can't see anybody immediately settling on a net list. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it'll start to work out. You'll end up with someone doing, it'd be like level 4 Lawmaster BSB, like you say, a couple of Bolt Throwers, a couple of Eagles, 2 infantry units, and some stuff and a Phoenix. Maybe it might end up being like that, but. Initially, I do think that there's scope. There's not too many like you said about the Vortex Beast. There's not too many that non-optimal choices that you'd never take them. So, it'd be interesting to see how it goes. Have you got any thoughts about what you think you're going to be taking in your next list?
Next list, which I've already written, Phoenix Guard. Phoenix Guard cover themselves in all sorts of glory. I think the fact that they've still got rerolls and Swordmasters and White Lions don't, and they've gained the extra attacks, they've still got their ward save, they've still got fear, they were immense.
You mean the extra attack is in the extra rank?
Yeah, because of martial prowess, they get the third
I hadn't
rank.
considered that. I was talking about these at the weekend and I couldn't picture their role, but now you're saying that, I suppose they had extra 5, yeah.
I think they'll be kind of competing with the Phoenix as that target thing, but when you wizens them up, I mean, I've got a unit with a Razor Standard, they go through so much and they can take so much for a long time as well. At the moment, I think they are one of the standout choices myself. Whether it will turn out that way, I don't know.
Here's one for you. Could you give them can you give the champion the Ring of Cain? If he successfully casts it, does the unit get a +1 ward save because of the rules?
I'm not sure if he can take it. I think he might be restricted to just magic weapons on the character. And that was something that if you can get a high elf mage in there to start casting high magic out, then obviously that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in my game versus Lizmen. Just had the level 2 in there on the corner, firing out signature soul quenchers at skinks, just marching the whole thing forward with 3-up ward save, saying, come on if you think you're hard enough. And nothing was.
No, I can imagine. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. Be interesting to see. I definitely have to get gaming, because I'd imagine that's a worrying unit for anybody to commit to, because you don't know what the ward save is going to be, but it's more your magic phase. If it's in your phase, how that's going to plan out. And like everything with the 4-up ward save, you can bounce a horrendous amount of damage and you're chucking out constant attacks all the time. So, yeah, interesting, actually. Well, I look forward to seeing how that pans out. Good. Okay, well, hopefully that's given everybody a good idea of some initial thoughts. I don't want to go on too much or we'll end up doing a mini book review. So, Wayne, is there anything else you wanted to ask Si, or anything that you personally thought
No,
you'd
you
be
might
using?
notice I'm quite quiet tonight because I'm just sort of listening, really, because I've only had a look through the book. I'm really looking forward to battle. Obviously, me and Simon will get a game at some point in the near future. So I'm really looking forward to playing against them, because at some point I do want to do an army with a low model count, whether that's going to be high elves, dark elves, or wood elves even. I don't know. But yeah, they are interesting. I'll give them that. They are interesting.
definitely.
Shame the Phoenix model's so bad, but never mind. Can't have it all.
Well, have you seen in the colour section the Phoenix when it's top down? They've done a photo. It looks brilliant, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does look better.
It just looks a bit too, and the same. We've seen that picture from below it, and it looks really good. On top of it, it looks really good. I think it's just, unfortunately, it's a little bit. If you look from the front, it's a bit of a pancake type affair. So, but I still think you'll see plenty of them, and they'll look fine when they're on the table, I think. So, good. Okay. Well, I think we'll leave the High Elves there for a moment. When we come back, we'll do the next segment. But don't worry, you High Elf fans, there's a little bit more for you on the hobby side coming up. Speak to you soon.
Oi, Muppet!
Okay, so Oi Muppet today. Now, today's one is fairly simple. It's about pre-measuring and planning. They're sort of linked, in my view. From a new player's perspective, I see this all the time. I also see it with some experienced players on occasion, depending on your sort of style of play. This one really is, you've got the ability to pre-measure. So just pre-measure. There's no reason not to measure things. So some people will... I know we mentioned it before with the battle standards and the generals, making sure that you're within 12 inches rather than just presuming you are. But this one's more about sort of planning and pre-measuring. So you don't want to get to your magic phase and have a really important spell that turns out that it's out of range. It's a 24-inch range spell and you're in 24.5 inches away because you haven't thought in the movement phase about your magic phase. So they're kind of linked. It's not just pre-measuring, it's thinking, in my magic phase, I want to do this spell, so I'm going to make sure this wizard is within 24.
That's the most common mistake I make.
Yeah, there's a good example. Yeah,
the amount of times I've moved you into my movement phase, got to my magic phase, and just not shown enough care and attention to the magic phase, and then realised that I can't do what I want to do.
No, and it's such a common one. I mean, even experienced players do it. You get so caught up with the important avoiding this charge or making sure that this wizard isn't within this charge range. And it happens a lot with shufflers, so they move it forward, shuffle a unit back or something, and then haven't made sure that their wizard's in range. So that would be one, is for you doing it yourself, making sure. But also, when you're defending against magic phases, I see this as well, is about knowing not only the range of your opponent's spells, but also the arc they need to be in. So you'll find someone who's got 24-inch magic missiles, and you're thinking, oh no, they're going to do this spell to me, I'm going to keep all my dice. Gets to the phase, and they haven't cast it, and you're still with dice in your hand, and you're thinking, well, where's this spell coming from? Well, the reason it's not coming is because your opponent knows that it's not in range, but you don't. It's stuff like that. I know that's knowledge-based, and the same with front arc spells. Sometimes you'll be waiting and thinking, oh, I'm going to get gatewayed, or I'm going to get, some direct damage spell on me, but they're not facing you, you're not in their front arc. So it's that kind of stuff. But the main one is measuring you personally as a player, is planning your shooting or your magic phase. If you need to be in range, doing it at that point and not treating the phases like they're totally separate. I have seen people play where they move forward, do all their movement phase, and then it's like it's a fresh game. They've just come to the table and they're like, right, shoot him. What am I doing here? Oh, yeah, I'm shooting that. Oh, no, they're out of range. Or you get to magic phase. Right, get your cards out, have a look. What am I going to do now? Oh, that's out of range. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff, really. It's just avoiding that. So there you go. Oi Muppet for the week. Si, have you ever done anything like that yourself? I'm sure most people have.
Yeah, I've done lots of it. My issue has been not checking necessarily where my opponent is. Happened to me in that High Elf versus Lizardmen game. And I thought, yep, that's fine. Okay, moved units, and didn't quite realise that if he marched his slan in just the right way, he could get in range for his death magic, which left me with a rather sort of scary moment. Thankfully, he didn't cast the Death Snipe because he was so convinced I'd have Banner of the World Dragon, so I was all right.
Yeah. Did you not run it then in that list? Yeah.
No, I didn't. I was a hobby gamer and left it out.
Hobby gamer.
It was
take the moral high ground.
Yeah, I left it out. No, good. Okay, well, that's Oi Muppet. Nice and simple. As usual, something to consider. Pre-measure. Make sure you measure.
Just dip it.
Okay, just dip it. So I thought, as we're doing a bit of a High Elf themed show today, and I know Simon's working on a new High Elf army, I thought we'd talk a little bit about maybe High Elf themes and things you can do with your High Elf army when you're considering it. It's a question, out of all the time we've been doing this podcast, actually, it's a question I've been asked a lot, and that is, have you got any ideas for a High Elf theme? And where Wayne and I don't really play or paint high elves, it's something that we haven't really been able to answer with any real depth. So I thought it would be an interesting one to do. So I'll start with you, Wayne, this time. Have you thought of any ideas looking through the high elves of some stuff you could do?
Yeah, I'd quite like the idea of doing the whole the frost theme, not necessarily snow basing, but kind of like a glacier. So everything was like basically on ice bases. And then obviously you'd have the phoenixes, the ice phoenixes to go with it, and everything was in that theme. Everything was kind of based around that. I don't know how that would fit in with the geography of the old world, and
there must be some mountains or something on Ulf one. Surely,
I mean, you could do it where there may be a campaign, an army going into Nagaron, or kind of attacking that way.
I mean, they'd probably get there through some sort of, I don't know, portal. Through.
Yeah, you had to say, didn't you? You had to get it in there.
Yeah.
But no, maybe like a dark elf raiding. They're actually going to take the war to the dark elves, so they're going through the mountains, and then obviously they're going through the ice there. But I quite like the idea of that, kind of using water effects. But I saw it was actually a guy that was doing model railways, and he was doing water effects, and he was doing icicles and stuff, and some of the products you can use for it's not the water effect. It's a different kind of I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a kind of water effects where you put a plastic, almost like a rod, and then you put the water effects around the rod, and as you build it up, and obviously you can like snap it off and then make the icicles out of it and stuff like that. So I quite like the idea of that. That would be different. Not your usual snow basing, maybe avoid that and just go for ice. And I think that look really cool.
Good.
But then again, with the ice, I don't know what the colour scheme would be. Would you go for something really contrasting, like a red, or would you keep it to kind of blues and dark colours so the whole army looks very cold? So I'm not sure how that will work, but
no,
I like the idea of it though.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. That looked quite cool, especially if you're doing lion cloaks and things. It would look kind of wintry look.
Yep, yeah, definitely. That would come across really good. Yeah, the whole because that's another thing where they're kind of they're not really dressed for cold weather. I don't know if it would work in that sense.
Skirts aren't really for the season. Yeah.
No, so but yeah, I do quite like the idea of basing it around the sort of the ice phoenixes. Yeah.
Mind you, out of all the things that's easier to do in green stuff, fur's got to be one of them, right? So if you wanted to, you could do. I'm thinking Russian style. Big furry bits around the bottom of their cloaks and around their hats.
Like furry.
Yeah, so they look like Russian. Sort of Soviet.
That would probably look really bad.
In Soviet Ulf one. I don't know what the next bit of it is, but yeah, that'd be quite cool. I like that.
That would look so dodgy.
I might do it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to. But something tells me that might look quite cool. So yeah, I like that. I like that glacier theme. What about you then? So what have you done for your new army?
So I've been going for Avalon as my theme. So, and I think that's something that the book sort of hints at is rather than having a page for each sort of unit, it's almost a page for each province. So all the stuff to do with Calador is in one section. All the stuff to do with Avalon is one section. And so for that, I've sort of gone for lots of greens. I've tried to avoid white as much as possible, since it's supposed to be sort of much more of a peaceful realm and sort of less war in general. And lots of trees and foliage. And I'm going to see if I can get some sort of wild animals, maybe foxes, wolves, that kind of thing, just to place around.
A few sheeps, pigs, that kind of stuff. That'll look good. No, carry on.
And just sort of lots of the wood elf type stuff, and so far I think it looks like it's going together quite well.
I saw some models you were working on the other day, and they painting's definitely coming on. It's good to see actually when people start painting and they're at a certain level, and obviously as their armies progress or they go back over stuff and start repainting stuff, and they're painting. And you're one of those guys where you can really see the progression from your early stuff to what you're doing now, and there's a big jump, Like the eagle that you did. Shame, really, because you probably won't use it anymore. But
it's still in there at the moment.
Yeah, the
I'm
eagle
holding on to it.
That's the nicest model you've done in the army so far, and it looks really, really good. And the colour schemes, I quite like the dark green actually because you don't really see many high elf armies done in with just literally no white on them, and it's in completely different colours. I quite like that actually. I think it's quite good.
I suppose it's hard to remember as well because Sai is what probably I don't know what the age difference between you guys is, but
It's
what?
about 20. What are you, 23?
Yeah, 23.
Yeah, so it's about 18 years.
Yeah, so you think of the extra years in the hobby you've got. That's just, he's the size probably going through the same similar journey as you did at that stage of the hobby where you've been in it for how many years you've been doing it, size? So I'm going to guess at about what 10, 9, 10, something like that.
9, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. Because when
Sort
did you
of
start?
since-
Most people like 13ish, and
Yeah,
I said,
school.
So I think most people start to progress after that period, don't they? You have that period of where you're really not doing a lot, aren't you? For I don't know, even 5-6 years where you're just painting odd bits and stuff, and then you pick up tips. And I suppose it's how serious you get and how quick, and then you obviously.
I think
start...
the gaming group makes a big deal as well, because if you join because I mean when I was first into it, and I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then I got into kind of Warhammer, had the rule books, and when it very first came out, didn't really have anyone to play it against, so it's kind of just a matter of and a lot of it was just card armies. So when you did get hold of some models, usually they were kind of role playing models, so painting those up and making a collection that way. And none of all my mates I went to school with, none of them were into it either. So then you had to go out your way to find gaming groups, which were really few and far between. But when you did find them, suddenly your painting came on leaps and bounds, because obviously you wanted to do more, show other people, them show you their stuff, and and like the clubs, club scene, because you kind of the progression of your army and hobby in general, just it does go a lot quicker, and you do push yourself a lot more, because especially if you're like if you're like in a club with like-minded people and you all want to develop your painting skills, you do tend to bounce off each other, don't you, with different ideas, and and you ask each other for advice, and you look at different things, and you get and I've had it before where, even though as long as I've been in the hobby, sometimes you'll see someone that's just come into it and they'll do something and you'll go, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And that person's brand new to it. So you never stop learning, you never stop picking up ideas. I say the biggest thing for me, I actually really like I'm actually converting everyone to the Foundry paint system. It's great. Every time I go to someone else has picked up the Foundry paints, I just feel like, I'm championing it. It's great. But for the army painting, for the 3-colour system, I know it kind of appears that the paint's more expensive, but obviously where you're getting 3 colours for army painting, you just can't beat it.
The pots are larger as well. It's
20
mil compared to 12 mil, I think, for the GW ones. So it actually works out cheaper.
Yep. So it's cheaper, yeah.
Ooh, there you go. Another thumbs up. I need to get some more, actually. I'm thinking of redoing a bit.
Well, we need to put an order in, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, because I need a few more as well. There's a few colours, really old colours from my original set that I want to get. I want to get some more of.
Okay, so what was your looking at the book then? What was your guys' favourite theme from the book?
Province.
Yeah. Province. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the red theme, the lions. You pronounce it, Simon. You pronounce it better.
So there's a section in the book where it shows some Thracian.
Thracian, yeah. So yeah, that's my favourite. I quite like the red. I think it looks really good on the high elves. I'm not as keen on the blue and white, but I think that's because you should see it everywhere, don't you? It's just it epitomises high elves. It's such it's the obvious thing. And sometimes when you see high elves in a completely different colour scheme, they just look more interesting because you're just not used to seeing it that way.
No.
Like I like the dark green. In the book, there's Dragon Prince models all done in dark green armour. That looks really cool.
Oh, excellent.
And I think as well, when you see this, because I found this with my army, where you got the sort of the blue, the white, and then silver, because there's so much armour on the models.
Yeah.
When you've got a lot of white and a lot of silver, it can just sort of, from a distance, or just sort of merge into one, unless it's done really well with the metals.
Yeah.
So I think high elves look good, but they look particularly good in almost anything other than blue and white.
I'd quite like to see like one done in like really dark colours, as in like there's a Foundry paint called Storm Blue, which is almost like it starts off as a black and then comes up to like a very dark kind of very dark blue, but kind of like a real muted blue.
Yes, I know. Well.
And that would look, I don't know what colour you'd put with it, but that would look really good on the cloth. But then you'd have this really dark theme, really dark look to the army overall. Obviously, you'd have to contrast it with the base, and maybe that'd work with the ice.
Yeah,
because you'd have the very light, with the ice and everything, and then you'd have this very dark looking thing. Maybe to make them look like they're kind of wrapped up warmer they are, because you're not making the cloth appear light and flimsy, you're making it appear heavy and hard wearing. So maybe you could get that. You could get away with that look.
And you can sort of attach the colours. I mean, it'd be interesting. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, the heraldry book they've released. But, if you were going for those kind of dark colours, that's sort of the Nagarai sort of shadow warriors, that sort of what's left as the dark elves, you could do a lot with that kind of theme, I think.
Yeah, I think if I was going to do high elves, I would do that. I'd do the dark color scheme and just work with that. Try and work with that. But yeah, I must admit, in this short conversation, I'm actually quite tempted to do high elves now because of the small model count and just thinking it's a real good painting project. And I really like the fact that they brought out resin shields, so the creation, and you can get the Love and Sea Guard. They do the shields for them now, and so you can really spend a lot of time, even though they're embossed shields. They still, if you spend a bit of time on them, you can do a really lovely paint job on them. And maybe take them embossed shields, but do them in a completely different way. So as you would imagine to see them, just change them, change the colour of them to give them a completely different, to the eye, they just kind of look a bit weird looking because they're not as you expect them to look, But yeah, there's definitely some options. I've actually got a high elf, the mounted wizard and wizard on foot.
Yeah.
I was going through some stuff the other day and I found him, and I don't know where I got him from, but he's complete.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, should I do a test model? Should I paint one model and see how I go with it? But then would I use a mounted wizard? I don't know because I haven't really written any lists. So
Yeah, run him around doing Ellerin Reavers. There you go.
Is a mounted wizard viable?
Possibly. I mean, if you go high magic and you've already got a 6-up ward save on your Dragon Princess, every time you cast it gets higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but there's this little niche.
Well, you could. I mean, arguably, if you're not playing anything where it worries about lookout, so you could tag him on the end of a unit of archers. If you are, you've probably got Ellerin Reavers in your army. Just run them in there.
Yeah.
Put them in your bus for a little bit, or it depends how many dice you're rolling. The only problem with running wizards in buses is as any Bretonian player will tell you that one miscast ends the unit a lot of the time. So
there's a foot wizard in there as well, so I could paint. I might just do it because that literally is the only high elf models I've got.
It's just dawned on me. It's not a problem at all. If you've got the Banner of the World Dragon in the unit, you've got 2-up ward save against the miscast, so you can run him around in your cavalry bus. There's an idea for a list. Cavalry bus with your wizard inside.
Oh, yeah, because it's 2 up against magic.
Yeah. So Crown of Command, somewhere in there, obviously. It is. The wizard in the second rank somewhere would be great.
Prince with a giant blade in the front.
Yeah. Go Killy. There's a build for you, Wayne. I'm telling you. 12 Dragon Princes.
I'm home tomorrow. I'm not at work tomorrow.
15.
I have to fish him out and have
I reckon 13 silver helms with mind you, might have to put the BS. Well, you might have to use the you might have to put Wild Dragon on the BSB then, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go. You can have it. A cavalry bus that actually could have a wizard in it and not blow itself up. There you are. Food for thought until everyone comps the Wild Dragon. Yeah, but if or make it high BSB only, but it still works, so it's fine. But yeah, there you go. I like that idea. Anyway. We've done this part. We're on about hobby. We're all about a hobby here. We're not on about.
I just want to know if it's painting a model as well.
Yes.
But it doesn't really matter really because usually the first model I ever paint for a new army anyway is usually one I never get to use. A bit like you with your Empire, when you just your crossbows and your volley. And
I've been using them recently.
Rocket.
But the rocket's never getting used. Not unless I'm playing you in some 500-point game, and I better be bent.
Kill the world, won't it?
Yeah. Pew, pew, pew.
I think I'll get him out tomorrow and I'll have a look at that because it is a really nice model. And in the Foot Wizard, he's kind of floating on some rocks or something. There's like a pillar of rocks or something.
You can put him on either some rocks or like this sort of swirling fire smoke type effect.
I could do that as a frosty mist.
There you go then. Give it a go.
Yeah, I think I will.
Come back and report to us. Let us
talk about it on the next show and see how it got on.
Yep.
Which probably means it'll never get out of the shed. Pick the box out, look at it, put it back again.
No.
Paint some Skaven instead.
Paint some Skaven.
Yeah, he'll come back and he'll go, I had this really good idea, right? I'm going to float it with you. Rat men, high elves.
yeah. Or he's my new grey seer. I'll put a rat head on him.
Yeah. The Phoenix model, right? Yeah, just imagine it, yeah? A-bomb head. Job done. Gets up like one. Be fine. It's all a theme, right? Yeah, no way, no. We're calling it here and now. So yeah, I've seen a lot of Hell themes. I've seen plenty of armies done around the Sundering time where there's a lot of purple involved. I'm not sure about those. Sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. But yeah, I'm with you. I quite like the idea of sort of mid greens or just neutrals, Lord of the Rings style. Greys, browns, that kind of stuff. It's not something that like you'd probably get too excited about, Wayne, because you like the big contrasty, uber stuff.
I'd have to, even if I went for the drab, like the muted colours with the dark in it, I'd still have to have something in there that would really contrast against it.
Purple and green. There you go. That would look quite cool.
Well,
I think.
Yeah.
Purple and massive.
I mean, there's another foundry company called I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Wine Stain.
No, I don't think I have.
It's like a sort of reddish sort of purpley colour, but it's more red. It's definitely more red. and that is kind of like it's got more of a sinister look. If you put that with black, say, like a highlighted black, and in that's got kind of a more sort of sinister sort of Slaneshi look to it. So that might, in small amounts, that might work quite well with it.
Good.
As a contrast, and then you're not going too bright, but obviously it's bright enough to really contrast against the darker colours.
Yeah, sure.
So that I might give that a whirl actually, because that looked quite strange.
Yeah, I like the idea of that one. I like the idea of that. So yeah, I don't know. There's quite a lot, but it's always a hard one, isn't it? Because the sort of iconic look is either white and red, or that blue and red, red and white and blue and white style scheme. So moving away from that almost feels a bit blasphemous. But it's I think there's plenty of schemes out there to be had for people who want to do it.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to experiment with different colour schemes anyway, because I think sometimes you can fall foul of, if you paint a really nice army, but it's done in the traditional colour scheme, sometimes it just gets overlooked. You go to a tournament and people just see another blue and white high elf army, and they don't really give it the attention it maybe deserves. But if you go for something really different, you kind of, people, straight away the colour scheme, people go, oh, what's that? And then they get down and have a proper look at it. And if it's good, then obviously then it'll get talked about.
I remember seeing a high elf army like that. I was sort of just walked past it at a tournament. It was just sort of a little one-day tournament. And I then bent down and had a closer look at the blue. And actually it was a really dark blue, but then what they'd done is they'd put sort of stars and little swirling galaxies and stuff on sort of like all the major models' cloaks and things. And it looked really cool. But as soon as you stood up, yes, another blue and white high elf army, moving on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, changes colour scheme. Well, it depends how it all depends on how you are with your painting. If you just want to sort of knock out quick armies just to play with, it just comes down to what you're looking to get out of the hobby, I suppose.
Good. Now, if you come across, just before we finish this segment then, Wayne, if you had any crazy ideas for conversions, or you, Si, on anything that stands out?
I think the high elves are quite difficult. Like with all like the sort of the sort of the ruinous powers armies, yeah. You can go wild, can't you? Because you've got the whole mutation beasts, the chaotic thing. You can pretty much do what you want to do, and kind of, you world oyster really. It's just that you're not really, there's nothing really in your way to stop you doing anything. But then when you get to like the forces of good, if you like, I think they're, conversion wise, they're a lot more restricted, because it still has to be in keeping with the army and look like it's part of it. So there's only certain ways you can go. Quite like with the high elves, because I think you're going to get hell of a lot of people are going to be using different models for their phoenixes. Either maybe certain kinds of dragon models from different companies, or some really old Games Workshop dragons, or different things like that, and they're going to use them as their phoenixes. So I think conversion wise, that you might see a lot of that. Be interesting to see if someone takes a different take on the Sky Chariots. They do something really wacky with something like that, and just make it look completely different.
Maybe some sort of giant eagle with the bolt throwers and stuff sort of on the back, sort of like a Howler type thing instead.
Yeah, like a mini one. It's almost like a machine platform, and the guy's riding it or something like that. Yeah, you might. Yeah, I think those, the Phoenixes, the flying chariots. I'm not sure too much about the rest of it actually. I don't, because apart from kind of like unit fillers, not actually just making the units look more interesting. I'm not really sure on the conversion bit, really.
I think you'll see a lot of Elrian Reavers becoming Silver Helms. I've started doing that already.
Yeah.
Just because the Silver Helm models looked pretty dated previously.
The Fugand ones that have got those massive hands, you mean?
Yeah, and they've got the sort of very scary horse heads, and they just don't look right when you compare it to the rest of the army, especially when you compare it to the sort of the new steeds that we've had since probably about the Glade Riders, I think, or the first Elven steeds.
So if you were doing a Lothern Seagun army as well, if you converted those Lion Reavers into Silver Helms, that would fit as well, because you've got the quivers and everything on them. And then if you get like the resin shields and put them maybe hanging off the back of the horse, so the guy's got the lance but he hasn't actually picked up the shield yet, or something like, what I mean, that all fits, doesn't it? And it really fits in with a Lothern Seagun army. Which could fit in with that frost theme, because obviously they've arrived off a ship and a raiding party going into the Dark Elf lands. So that see, I'm getting an idea now.
Yep. Until it turns into rat elves.
Yeah, whatever.
I can see it coming. Watch the space, listeners. Watch the space. Okay, so I think we'll leave that one there. But cheers for the ideas, guys, and I think it's time for a bit of.
Hobby Hero.
Okay, so Hobby Hero. Well, after the success and the awesomeness that was the the Sphinx riding Tomb King last time. We've gone a bit not quite as crazy this time. This one I think is easier than the last one, so I'm hoping that people jump on this one. I think actually just having a look at Twitter over the weekend, someone actually did use this in a tournament. So if this person's listening, send us your pics and your stories you want to know. But Demon Book, a lot of people are playing it because it's new. We want to see your Blood Throne, your Khorne Herald on a Blood Throne. Ideally, we want him to be your general because that would make it extra special. But if he's not your general, it's fine. We'll accept it. But yeah, Blood Throne stories. We want to know who's using them, who and what you used it with, and how it fit in your army, what it did, stories of what it killed, how it performed. Would you take it again? What did any of your opponents comment on the fact you were using one? I'm interested in all this kind of stuff, and ultimately pictures as well is fantastic because it always looks good seeing it kill things and seeing it on the board. And as usual, sort of standard rules. We don't want to know about proxies. We want to see this model built with people, with dudes, standing there with their swords killing stuff. So send those in. Anything you want to say on this one, Wayne?
Not really, no, because I've got the Demon Army. I've just put another 6 Screamers together today, actually. So, and I haven't got that model in the army. And I was, it's kind of all the lists I've written. I've never put that in any of the lists because it's kind of like I don't know where. I don't know. It just doesn't fit in with anything I want to do. So I'll be really interested to see someone use this and see how they get on with it.
Definitely.
They might come back and say it was amazing. I was expecting it to be rubbish, and I had a really good time with it. You never know, do you?
No, this is why we ask these stories because there's a lot of non-optimal choices. One of them I'm very interested to hear about. We'll talk about at a later date. Is I want to hear about Warshrine stories, but please don't send me those yet. That's just something that I thought about the other day. Is there's a unit that's gone from really popular to not being popular, and I saw at least one person using it at the South Coast GT a couple of weekends ago, and it looked better than it looked on paper actually. So, but anyway, that aside, Blood Throne. We want to see your stories from the Blood Throne. Oi, geese! Oi, oi!
Hello, sweetheart. Show us your tips.
Show us your tips. Wow, this one was good actually, and it came in just at the right time of sort of a high elfish show we were doing today. And this was from Chris Yu from the Garage Hammer podcast. He, on the back of our display board discussion, sent us some nice pics of a high elf display board, which, if I remember rightly from the email, he won an appearance award at Adepticon quite a few years ago with this particular one, and it was really cool. I'll post some links in the thread, but it was basically a sort of shoreline, wasn't it? Like almost like
it was a key,
harbour key.
It was a harbour key, with a high elf ship, and then the units on the ship, and then units to the side of it, and then the eagles. He put the eagles so they were kind of like flying past the ship, and there's a big. It looks like he's used a Roman ship. A scale, I don't know what scale the model was, but it looks like he's used a Roman ship with a kind of big wide sails on it, which is all done up, painted in an elven theme. But yeah, it's cool. Look, it's a good idea, and he's done it really well actually because even like the water and everything, it looks good. There's a picture of actually with all the models taken off apart from the eagles, so it just looks like the eagles are flying past. Just flying past the ship. It's got that kind of Troy look to it. What all the ships are in Troy when all the ships are kind of coming up to.
What's cool as well is the eagles all fit. So 2 of the eagles are sort of flying down the side of the water, so they've got water basin, and then you've got one on the side which is painted the same way as sort of the harbourish type part. But yeah, it was good. There's lots of little details I liked on it, and this is the kind of thing that I like. I mean, anyone who's been in the hobby a long time remember the Mike McVeigh dioramas, and we've mentioned them on the show before, and for me they were one of the key things I loved about the hobby is seeing the amount of detail that goes into telling a story on a diorama, and this display boards like this kind of tell that kind of story. He's got little sort of bowls with I don't know what they are, but there's just tiny little details on all of it, which I really, really like. So, and he sent us another one that was on there, which was an orc and goblin army that was done, and that one's not quite as much detail, but it's still really nicely themed. The army looks good on it, nice and simple, and adds something to the army. But the high elf one was particularly cool, considering that we're on a bit of a high elf week this week. So. We were impressed by that. So cheers for sending that in, Chris. And if we're always interested in display boards, if anyone thinks they've got it seems to be a hot topic at the moment on the UK gaming scene. Whether we'll see a rise in these, I don't know. But
we was talking off air about hopefully we'll see a few coming into the UK scene, and hopefully it'll take off because I just, in general, armies just look better on them, don't they?
Yeah, we don't want them to be a score as we spoke
No,
about
no,
last
people
show,
just
but-
do them because they want to do them. And if they just do them for that reason, then you'll see good stuff because there'll be a lot of extra detail added to them. They won't be just some flocked board with put your models on there for 10 extra points. No, we don't want to see that.
Definitely not. So yeah, hopefully we'll see that. But cheers for sharing that, Chris. We were impressed by that. We had a good look at that off air before we came on. So thanks very much. And as I say, there should be some pictures on the show, Fred, of that particular board, so you can see the kind of stuff you can get up to. Okay, right, on to our final segment.
Beady weedy week.
Beady Weedy Weeks. I love that filler. Beady Weedy Week. I can't even do it because obviously it was slightly helped by a certain sound effect that we had. But yeah, so on to our Beady Weedy Weeks. I think I'm going to start this week because I've had a bit of a...
Done something?
I've done a lot of stuff this week. We went to Heelanhammer 2, as it was called. So the way this came around was there was a few of us going to Call to War tournament, which is a tournament in the UK that I've been to for probably since it started every year around this time. It's always a good event. And unfortunately, with Maelstrom Games going under, there was a lot of talk about would it happen, etc., etc. So we made a decision, or a few of us did, not to go because we weren't sure it was going to happen. As it turns out, the administrators of the business opened it up and Call to War looked like it was a really good event. So shame to miss it in a way, but we did have a really good time doing this. So there were 6 of us at Russ's house, and he turns his house into like a little... I don't know, you've been before, Wayne. I don't know, describe it like a little...
Yeah, it's like a sort of gamer's haven, isn't it? He's got boards everywhere he can have them, and then he's got like a sort of like a big tent outside, which is attached to the house, like an awning. So there's another couple of tables out there, and last time I went, it was great. You can just, if you wanted to, you could just play all weekend into the night, go to sleep, get up, carry on playing. It's great.
Yeah, so what most of us did was to sort of keep faith with wives and girlfriends and things. We all turned up, myself, Dan Thomas, who's been on the show before, and Brian the Hobby Killer, we all turned up fairly early on Friday, just after lunch, and started playing Warhammer, really. Went to bed sort of 2 a.m, got up Saturday, played all day until about 8 o'clock Saturday night, and then drove back. So I played 7 games during the time, which was really good. I was using Empire list at the time, so I won't go into to massive detail, but on what I was running, because it's not really relevant at this point. But it was really good. All I wanted to say, it was really good fun. I played a lot of different races. I played dwarfs, interesting anvil list. I played which had the whole scouting concept. So we have 2 units of miners and a unit of rangers and an anvil. So it's been seen at ETCs for the last few years, but yeah, quite fun. So I played against that, played against ogres, played against demons, warriors, vampires. What else did I play? I don't know, loads of stuff. High elves. I just played a good mix basically in every game.
Yeah.
I played a couple against warriors, but demons impressed me actually. One thing that made me chuckle, and people who saw me on Twitter would have seen me tweeting this, is the warp flame special rule. When demons come out, got so much stick on the internet for being horrendous and rubbish, and what's the point? It's, you're giving him regen. Having seen it in action in about 3 or 4 games this weekend, it's really good, really good. I'm interested to see what people's thoughts are when they play it, but the little toughness test you have to do at the end of the phase will suffer D3 wounds was really good. I mean, Russ Ville blew away, he was playing demons against me, and he blew away a unit of 4 wounds, full wound unit, hasn't had a touch to it, 4 demigriffs he blew away with magic and shooting, mainly down to warp flame. And it's slightly fortuitous that I failed some toughness tests, but it just blew the whole unit off and around, and it's just amazing. So really, really impressed, and I haven't seen the demons again on paper. When I first saw the book, I really didn't see where the power come from, but the more I've seen them, the more I see they're actually a really cool army. I know we said it on the show, and they're getting a lot of love from us at the moment, but they do seem like a really good fun army. Having played against them and watched games with them, really cool. I might have to visit them at some point, depending on what happens to them. But just really well designed, balance, internal balance. The book's good. How the special rules, it all feels, the feel of the army seems really, really good.
Yeah.
So I was impressed by that. So that was good. The Warriors army, I'd be interested to see how Warriors develop if there was more scenarios in the UK. So the list we're seeing at the minute, a lot of chariot heavy. It's like a 7th edition army, like something that you've run, Wayne, years ago with 14 odd chariots. It's the equivalent of that. It's a load of chariots, and superhero characters.
They're just smash and grab armies, aren't they? It's all about just getting in and pummeling your opponent as early as possible in the game.
But of course, if we had scenarios like Blood and Glory where you needed fortitude and you needed banners, then the army list would look different. So there's an argument there maybe that we could do with some of those to help aid the builds. But so I played against a few of them. They still good. seem to be okay. They've never been my kind of army warriors, but they seem like I did well. And yeah, I just had a really good time. I played some really cracking games. One of the best games I played for a while, actually. I played against Russ the Face. He had Warriors and I had Empire, and we had a really close sort of a swingy game with tons and tons of combat early, obviously, as you would do with a Warriors army running at you, and it turned out really, really well. Highlight of that being, and over the weekend, actually, the highlight being several bits where I was up against it, and I was using Jack Armstrong's Empire army is what I'm using at the minute, and he's got a Valten model, mounted one, and it was him sort of on his own at points fighting the world, and it did look quite cool on the board. So I had a really good time pushing that around. So and yeah, usual kind of stuff. Really good weekend there at Russ's, well looked after, and just being able to play some Warhammer with your mates, and everyone, we just left armies out. So if you'd finished and you fancied a change, you just picked up someone else's army that was out and played it against someone, so they could have some practice against this race, or you fancied using this list, you just use that list, and it was quite a nice way. And I think brings you back to how sometimes. Maybe you got into the hobby a bit like club gaming, basically. But I mean, we were doing it a little bit more. We were all tournament players, so we were looking from a tournament perspective. But it's still that kind of atmosphere where you're just playing hobby games, and it's take backs and not take backs, but we'll put that back on if you've cascaded it if you want, and all this kind of stuff, or decide whether to or not. So, yeah, it was a really good weekend, and I had a lot of fun. So that's really what I've been doing. I haven't managed any painting. I've been really busy at work. And having a bit of a hobby wobble really about what I want to paint. The Wood Elves started calling me again, and I was thinking, but I don't know. There's rumours of a new Lizard Man book on the horizon. There's tons of stuff I keep thinking about doing. So but that indecisiveness has meant that I've done nothing. And then obviously I've played Warhammer for 2 days, and I've forgotten how much this podcast takes of my time in terms of getting the show out there, but also the emails, responding to emails from listeners and fans, and editing, recording. We've got a ton of stuff to do, and I'm not complaining. It's been great, and the support that you guys, the listeners, have shown the show in terms of Saucy sign-ups and things in the past month and a half has been fantastic. So really great to be back. But yeah, so really that's what I've been doing. I've been doing Warhammer, just not actually producing anything on a painting sense. What about you guys then, Wayne? What have you been up to?
I've been working on a unit filler for the Storm Vermin, which is basically a big. I did a load of work on it earlier in the year, but it's basically like a big cauldron. It was going to be for a plague monk unit. It's like a big cauldron, like 1,000 poxes kind of thing. But it's going to be for the Skaven brew. So it looks like a big vat of sort of bubbling goo and it's going to have like Storm Vermin guards around it. And then there's a guy at the front with a lectern. He's kind of like a Storm Vermin priest, because even though the religious side of it, everyone thinks it's the plague priest, it isn't actually with Skaven Society. It's kind of like the Graces, it's everything, it's all about the Horn Rat in it. So I'm going to have that, and I've done it so it's it actually takes up 12 models, so it's like 3 models by 4 deep. So I can either have it, I can put it in the horde if I have the big block, or I can obviously have it in the deep unit. So I'm working on that at the moment, and then the demons, it's kind of slowed down a bit actually. I still haven't finished the plague drones. They're all base coloured. I've got one finished, but I've kind of ground to a halt on those. And then I've put together another 6 screamers, because I want to run 2 6s or 3 4s. Because I love the screamers. I think they're great to play with. So yeah, I've got a load of models sent off for the commission work I did. I've got 60 nobblers sitting on the desk waiting to start, which I could just keep looking at them.
60 nobblers. Is that for a commission?
Yeah. I've got I've done like 4 Yetis and 2 Gorges, and I've got like a scrap launcher to do, a giant, 60 nobblers, 4 saber tusks. I think that's it. There might be a couple of other bits and bobs, but yeah, so I need to crack on with those as well. It's just getting a balance between your own stuff and because it's only like speed paint and stuff, so it's just getting that stuff done and then sort of working on my own stuff and getting a balance. But compared to last time we spoke, yeah, this has been quieter, much quieter for me this week. So.
Cool, good stuff. And what about you, Si? What have you been up to? The new army?
Yep, just been working on them. I painted, I think, another 5 of the old Maiden Guard models, and they're going to be my Sea Guard. Sort of, it's now getting to the stage when you've painted sort of the first 10 of a army, you start to really speed up because you sort of almost got that muscle memory with the models, and you can just get through it much quicker. And yeah, it's been great fun with those. I've also tried painting a Phoenix Guard. trying to work out the color scheme for them. I showed it to you, Wayne.
Yeah, you showed because you had like the one on the 40mm base.
Yeah,
with the tree and everything. Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah, look a lot moodier. Obviously because you got that like really, normally you see them in that really kind of bright scheme, but we've gone for the dark green cloaks and everything. They look a lot moodier. Look, I like it. I like that whole kind of. It looked like a campaigning army, were a bit dirtier.
Yeah, and I'm trying to sort of. I've with this Avalon army, I've had a lot of practice at building trees and things like that, and I'm just trying to be honest, I'm ditching some of the first ones I did and just working out how I'm going to incorporate them into the unit fillers and on the movement trays and things like that.
Good.
So, yeah, very good fun to be painting elves again. Yeah, it's one of those things you get your new book and suddenly you find you have all the hobby time in the world for it.
Yeah, you make it fit. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about that with the Lizardmen. I can see that if that comes out, and I like the direction. So I'm slightly worried they'll do what they did with Wood Elves. I loved Wood Elves though. My first army, absolutely loved it. When the really good book came out, when they were really good, I actually stopped playing them because I didn't like the direction the book had taken. So I'm sort of waiting almost to see what they do with this. And I'm hoping with the Lizards they don't change too much. I doubt they will because they've kind of seemed to have got their the picture set of how they want to do those. So
I hope they freshen them. Like they've done with the demons, where they went from a real. Personally, I thought they were quite boring because I painted me.
Demons are incredibly boring in my view.
Really, really dull. And now they're just
arguably one of the most diverse and rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then obviously with the High Elves coming out, and they've added to them and made them more interesting. Hopefully, the Lizards were the same because I always found that the last book. I find lizard builds just incredibly dull.
No, they are. They're very bland. That's always been the problem. I think that the combat options have never been really that attractive. They're okay. They're not bad. I mean, I don't really know what you do to fix them, but there's not been many of them. You've either got Saurus or you've got Skinks, and that's it. I know it's kind of two things, but you think an ancient race had a bit more diversity than just Saurus and Skinks. Maybe there's a spawning we haven't seen that we could do with
you're banning it with new kits and that, because I mean, pretty much the whole range is done in plastic, isn't it? There's not much left to do, probably pterodons and a couple of other bits and bobs. So you're going to get some new Gribblies with the new book, so it'd be interesting to see how that develops, and hopefully if it's in the same vein as the books we've had so far, it should be really interesting.
And that's been the thing with the with the High Elf book, especially with the Demon book, we've had variety, I think, and really it's only been sort of the Warriors and the Tomb Kings, I think, where you go with quite a few units. But even the Empire, where you say, okay, yes, you're going to have your Demigriffs, but after that there's still a lot of choices. While they might not necessarily be optimal, you can still have an awful lot of fun. It's not going to be you just getting a sad face after the first two games because you realise it's not doing anything.
No, it's a bit like, I'll give an example, crossbowmen. I've never seen anyone use them since the book come out, or just haven't seen him, or you very rarely see him. I've been using them. I used them in all 7 games in the week, and I thought they were fine. Whether they make a final competitive tournament list, I don't know, but they're not bad. And they're not like, people are treating the Vortex Beast, for example, as being this thing you'll never take. And the Empire book's full of those kind of choices where it's sort of much of a muchness because of what they are. You could, people generally take Halberdiers because they're strength 4, but arguably you could use Spearmen with the right magic. So, not Spearmen, Swordsman, the right magic. Spearmen fill a role, might be a bunker role, but they fill a role. So, there's tons of things there. And the more I've played the Empire, the more I can see some fun builds that you could do with it that don't make it so bland. It's a good time to Warhammer. Probably the best. We were chatting a bit about it at the weekend, and I still think it's the best Warhammer's ever been in 8th edition for diversity and how the game plays and feels. So, really, really good. It's
definitely the most fun it's been. I find I'm actually enjoying my games more than I ever did now.
Yeah,
because I think what the workshop have really got right as the books are coming out is that you're not really worried too much about the matchups. As more books come out, it used to be the armies you just didn't want to play. I'm finding there's less of that.
Yes,
I mean I'm sure not everyone will agree with this, but I'm just finding it's not as
no. Well, we haven't seen a 7th edition demon or a Skaven or anything reappear. If that makes sense, we were talking about this at the weekend. So if you took the 8th edition books and had those only in a tournament, I think you'd have a good time. We're no comp. People would argue maybe that the Tomb Kings or the Orc and Goblins were maybe a little bit lower on power level, but forgetting power level, I think you wouldn't have that sort of sigh at any of them, would you, with the way they play or anything?
I think definitely with the Tomb Kings, not so much the Orcs and Goblins. I mean, you think they won the South Coast GT and the Call to War was second in that. So Andy Avery in both tournaments. So I think the Orcs and Goblins have got the tools though. I mean, that's a really varied list as well. That army book, that's a great book. I really like the Orc and Goblin book. But the Tomb Kings, I think the Tomb Kings are probably the only one that suffered a bit by trying to keep up with the other books. They are behind.
And I think that reflects how difficult the army would be to write as a book because of the mechanics it needs with, without marching, being reliant on magic in a game that inherently has a random magic phase. So you don't want to make them too good. You've got to have their own special lore, and it's all got to be very balanced there. And I just think, they didn't drop the ball particularly far, but they did still drop it a little bit.
I think stopping any army from marching is just wrong because, considering how a key movement is in the game, I just think that's not allowing an army to march is just, I just don't get that at all. Especially when you've got like Carrion, which are a really good choice. If they could fly, like normally do the whole move, they would change, because they're a decent stat line, they can kill stuff. And if they could actually operate normal, like normal flying creatures do in the rest of the books, they'd be a really good option. I think that's the biggest thing with the Tomb Kings, and they're not being able to march. I think it's just really kind of held them back.
Like you said, I don't think they're massively off. I think there's some reasonably competitive builds, but as the books come out,
if you're going to take like 12 snakes.
I think if people compare, say, the Warriors book to the Tomb Kings, they're reasonable power level apart, maybe. But I still think if you're a good player and you were using a Tomb King build, you'd still do well against most Warriors, or you'd feel like you're in with the chance. There's just some things, unfortunately, with certain matchups that it causes them a lot of problems. And Sphinxes they've never really been as cut out as they looked on paper. Everyone was like, toughness 8, that's so broken. But realistically, a few 6s later and you've crumbled and you're dead. So, overall, just generally though, I still love that book. I still think it's great because it feels. I quite like how it plays. Ultimately, power wise, it might not play in a power way that is as good as some of the other books, but how it plays, I quite like the idea of the whole magic and debuff buffs and the way the casket works and don't know, just feels, some of it feels good. It just unfortunately might not be the biggest power level, a bit like the Orc and Goblin book. But as you say, if you take the real cutting edge build with a million war machines and chariots and stuff, the Orc and Goblins have still got it if they want it, or you can have a fun game. So you can run the kind of list that I famously lost and rage quit with Bunny Ears, which was the spider and 3 unit combat build. It's quite good. It's really good fun to play, but it depends if you're worried about power level or winning. So
with the Tomb Kings, because I've got a Tomb King army that I've almost finished painting, but I had like two or three games of it, and I just couldn't get my head around it. I mean, Lewis at the club, he had his for a while, and he's sold his now. You've got a Tomb King army, haven't you, Simon? You don't play that anymore.
Yeah, they are officially the only army I've ever boxed and put in the loft. I've still got Wood Elves that I painted 6-7 years ago that I'd be more likely to play than the Tomb Kings, unfortunately.
Sad times. Okay, well, I think we'll probably wrap it up here before we go on to a general ramble about 8th edition. But we're all in agreement. It's awesome.
I love 8th edition. I love it. I actually think if the Tomb Kings came out now, say like they were the next book, I think they'd be a different beast completely, and they'd be really, they'd make the changes and the tweaks, and they would run in line, and they'd be a great book. Maybe it was just good when they came out, and obviously all these books have come out afterwards. Of a certain level, that's the problem with them.
Look at the Vampire book, similar sort of restrictions to the Tomb Kings, and that's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's all, every edition's had that problem where you have sometimes early books either been too good or not so good, but I don't think it's been as bad this time round. It's been fairly reasonable, but I can definitely see what you're saying with the way some of these new books are coming out. But you look at Ogres, you don't know how the edition's going to pan out. Ogres got massively brought back in check, I feel. Like when they came out, they just ruled the scene, didn't they? They were everywhere.
Yeah,
it was
smashed everything.
Yeah, and then as the books came out with more monstrous cavalry that were better than theirs and other things, and the game changed from infantry heavy to a bit more of a mix on even sliding towards this kind of 7th edition style monsters and chariot type thing of a warrior's army, for example, has really brought them back in check. So we don't know how the game's going to develop if it carries on. You could have this great internal balance. So, but we'll find out. I'm sure there's people who disagree. But
if a book comes out and it kind of mixes everyone up afterwards, because I saw we were talking on, I felt about the normal Skaven build that you see at tournaments, and now kind of looking at it and thinking, I think that the Skaven build is going to change over the next few months. Skaven are going to, because they have got a varied list as well, different tools for different jobs, and that's going to change. And I think you're going to see less and less spell lists. I think they're going to disappear. I mean, I could be completely wrong on this. I usually am anyway. But I think the bells are with Skaven, with the other armies the way they're going, I think the bells are a thing of the past.
I'm not sure, but
we shall see.
I think Skaven generally are coming down a power level as the books are coming out. They're still very, very good and very, very safe to a degree, but that all conquering 20-0 smash everyone thing, I'm not so sure of with the way the games are going with more cannons and more monstrous infantry, but we'll find out. I'm interested to bring mine out at some point and give them another whirl. I'm sure I might do that in the next couple of weeks. So, okay, anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the show. As usual, please remember to visit our sponsor for all your hobby needs. That's www.oddgames.co.uk. Help us support the show by joining up to our Saucy section, our premium content section of the forum. At the moment, it's just half price at £9 a year. Please, make sure when you do sign up that you include your username for the forum. I spend so much time answering correspondence, and one of the main ones that comes up is me emailing you to ask you for your username so I can activate it for you. So sometimes there can be a couple of day wait on activation, so bear with me. But if you haven't been activated and you know you've signed up, please don't hesitate to email me again. Often, if you haven't included your username, that's more of the hold up. So just bear that in mind. The same with our forum. It's free for the actual forum itself, and there's a great little community on there, especially in the painting blogs section. Get on there, make sure you sign up. It's free to sign up, but because of the spam problem we have, please email me and I'll activate your account for you. You can follow us. The best place to follow all the things about the show, apart from on the website, is to follow myself and Wayne. So it's Dan. For me, it's at Heelanhammer on Twitter, and for Wayne, it's at WayneKemp13. Make sure you check that out and follow us on there. You get all the live updates, so you can see what we're up to and just random chat throughout the week. Remember, if you download us through iTunes and you like what you hear, please leave us a review there. We're always interested in moving up the rankings to help more people find out about our show. Not everybody is an internet regular and knows about these kind of things, so please do that, so when they search we appear higher up. And of course, the main thing, the most important thing, please tell your friends at your gaming club, on social media, everything. Spread the word. We're back, and we've got so much content planned over this next year that we hope this is the place you want to be listening for all your hobby and gaming all in one place. So thanks for that, guys. And thanks for joining us again, guys. So cheers, Si, for coming on. I'm sure I'll speak to you in probably a few weeks once you've had a few games. We'll have a little chat for the Saucy on how you found the High Elves and some small tactics and things that you've picked up, which would be great. So thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
And Wayne, pleasure as always. Don't know what to say.
I don't usually get sort of outroed.
Yeah, so there you go. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. Yeah,
anyway. My footsteps as I'm leaving.
Yeah. Anyway, until next time, guys, we'll see you then. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.